Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Food Security and Rural Development continues placing heavy emphasis
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Hello again, St. Lucia, and welcome to the program Agriculture on the Move. My name is Philip Sidney. Today we are discussing a very important topic, one I'm sure you will realize how important it is when we get into the nitty-gritty of the program. We're talking about soil care, and of course the impact on our sustainable food systems, of course our food and nutrition security. And with me are two gentlemen. To my immediate right is Mr. Alwyn Donnelly, who is the Chief Forest Officer in St. Lucia, and of course Mr. Gaius Eudoxy, who is a lecturer in soil science at the University of the West Indies. Welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Thank you, thank you.
Donnelly, tell us something about this soil care program. I hear there's a project on in St. Lucia. Yeah. I think St. Lucians need to know about it because I'm sure you would realize that soil care is one of the problems that we have here in St. Lucia. The acidity of our soils, and farmers talking about the use of inorganic, fertilizers that's causing a lot of the acidity. So tell us about this project.
Yeah, soil care is a project that developed it's probably about 4 to 5 years ago when the concept actually came to the fore. You had a number of I think they were UNCCD focal points from a number of the OECS countries who met together with this PISLM, and I'll explain what is PISLM. It's a partnership initiative for sustainable land management. PISLM is more like a secretariat, a sub-regional organization that helps to implement the UNCCD within the CARICOM, within the Caribbean. UNCCD itself, the United Nations Convention to combat desertification. It's a convention that St. Lucia ratified in 1997. And PISLM came into being around 2004 as a result of, agreements by the CARICOM countries, and that includes Haiti and right now Haiti and Suriname as well. But those islands came together, and just the subgrouping of these islands, more the OECS ones, and they were looking at the issue of land degradation. Now, the UNCCD as the main agency for dealing with land degradation, soil degradation, in an effort to address the life on land. That's the Sustainable Development Goal 15, life on land. Did initiate this land degradation neutrality program, which country parties, have to adopt, develop their country programs, and as well to be able to transform, from just theoretical reporting, to something that's practical. So soil care came about in terms of looking at how, these countries could deal with land degradation neutrality, but realizing that soils, since I think 1966, when there was the previous or the last update of soils information, in St. Lucia, and I'm sure for a number of the other Caribbean, islands too. So the project really developed, around that concept, that thinking, that there is a weakness, with our soils. Our soils need to be upgraded, and that would be critical to help to implement, the land degradation neutrality, but also to be able to do, other things, as the soil care project seeks to create a mechanism for land restoration, as well as climate resilient food systems. So that has taken a while. We've used our the GEF, Global Environment Facility allocations. I think that was GEF 6, to be able to develop, that project. Okay. So each country, I think, had to put about maybe a little over $1 million US dollars. That's the GEF allocations for each country into that project. So it's a regional project. It's being implemented by the PISLM as that regional mechanism, and last year we had the launching, right here at in St. Lucia, at our facilities in forestry. We had the launching of that project. So there are a number of components, and I'm sure one of the critical components is looking at our soils, updating our soils, the maps, the labs, and I'm sure Gaius will talk about that in a lot more detail. It's also looking to identify and come up with potential solutions for addressing land degradation, and also for addressing issues of climate change, how to mitigate and create resilience. But it's also looking at livelihoods, agriculture, coming up with smart agriculture. What would in now more homey terms? Smart agriculture, to be able to build, resilience to climate change.
Great. So, over to you, Mr. Gaius. Tell us something about you. I heard you. I didn't realize you were St. Lucian. Yes. Briefly, tell us about yourself.
Thank you and for having me on the program. It's always a pleasure being in St. Lucia, and it was really reminiscent for me to have the project start in St. Lucia. Obviously, where I'm from, and making sure that we could contribute back to the country in terms of its own development. My full name is Gaius Udoxi. I am a soil scientist, senior lecturer at the University of the West Indies, Faculty of Food and Agriculture. I also serve at the campus as a Deputy Dean of Outreach in our faculty. And I also serve as a task force member on the PISLM. And it is through that arrangement that I had the opportunity to share with Mr. Donnelly's predecessor, our current Minister of Agriculture, some thoughts about soils as a resource, and the fact that we have shunned that resource over time and not necessarily paid the kind of attention to it that probably is required required, where we seek to try to address global threats like food and nutrition security as well as climate change.
Correct.
And it is through that we had this wonderful conversation, and we were able to see where, in focusing on soils as a central node, that we were able to address some of the key concerns under the UNCCD. You know, they have some key indicators that they have to report, and one of those indicators is a very key soil property that is now globally talked about, called soil organic carbon content. You know, carbon dioxide, etc. So it's a very important property of the soil for many things, particularly with regards to soil health. So soil care was developed around our ability now to better understand our soil resources, and to make sure that in understanding those resources that we institutionalize our knowledge, and we make sure that we do not do the same thing that we did before. Mr. Donnelly was explaining that the last time we had information on soils was from the 1960s. You know, that is a very long time ago. Yeah. And that is the information that our farmers are using, that is the information our technocrats are using, that's the information our policymakers are using to make decisions about now. And it certainly does not necessarily give them the best information for decision making. And as such, we want to make sure that that never happens again. So that is how soil care really came forward, and we're really looking to guarantee that we have that resource base in a manner that allows for us to continuously benefit, not only for us obviously, but for the generations that are following us.
Where are we now with this program? When it started off, and you know, when is there an end point to this project?
Well, I will speak specifically to the component, and I'll let I'll speak a little bit more about the overall project.
Okay.
The university was engaged particularly to deliver on one of the components, the only regional component in the actual project, which is the updating of soils information and strengthening of our capacity to continuously monitor and assess our soils. So we are anticipating that within this particular component, we would complete the exercise of updating our soils probably within the next 2 years. When I say our soils, not just St. Lucia, but the other 8 participating countries.
Yes.
So updating all of those within the next 2 years, and by doing so, what we are trying to do is to have an information system available. So all countries will have a platform where they can access their soils information, update their soils information, use it as they see fit, whether it be for land use planning, whether it be for zoning, whether it be for farmers needing information about their soil at their site. And we also want to ensure in that period of time that all of our countries, and I have to say St. Lucia is at the forefront, running strong when you compare them to the other countries, because St. Lucia already has the infrastructure, a national diagnostic facility. So our mission under the project is to strengthen that facility to make sure that in St. Lucia we can continue to provide that very critical service to all of our stakeholders in a meaningful way.
Before we move to our break, which is coming soon, when you say, I know there's a survey coming on board, right? What is it that you're hoping to capture out there?
So we have already started, and I want to certainly extend my thanks to the ministry and to all the departments that have supported thus far. So what we are going out there doing is that we have already developed a random sampling design that is stratified across St. Lucia based on land use and soil types.
Okay.
So we already have that, and now what we're doing is going across the country, picking up those samples. And as we pick up those samples, what we're going to do with them is that we're going to analyze them for a range of properties, including the many things that the farmer is interested in, which is the fertility of the soils. But we are also going to expand that to guarantee that we could satisfy international conventions requirements, but also to provide an opportunity for other ministries to use that same information, whether it be for the environment, whether it be for utilities, etc., to know that they have information for doing work that involves our soils. So over the last couple of weeks, we have been on the ground. We have been taking samples. We are probably amassed probably about 70 to 75 sample points.
We'll hold that point because we're due for our break.
Okay, not a problem.
You're watching Agriculture on the Move. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon.
The Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Food Security and Rural Development continues placing heavy emphasis on the concept of food security. It's our prosperity, our future. The Crop Production Unit conducts surveillance and monitoring for trans-boundary pests and diseases of quarantine importance for St. Lucia. It provides technical assistance in the areas of post-harvest technology, agro-processing, and soil and plant tissue diagnosis. The unit facilitates prudent management of agrochemicals and toxic chemicals in an environmentally friendly manner for sustainable development. Soil analysis is also being carried out. Need further assistance on crop production? Contact the Senior Research Officer at 468-5601.
Welcome back to the program, Agriculture on the Move. Of course, as you have heard, we are discussing soil care and its impact on our food systems in St. Lucia. And of course, we have here Mr. Gias Eudoxy from the University of West Indies, and also Mr. Donnelly from here, our Chief Forest Officer. I'm very happy to hear, where you're going with your survey and the collection of, you collect samples, right, as you go around. And to hear during the break that the farmers will give you all that kind of the level of assistance. Yeah. They will do that because it's long overdue. Farmers are complaining, our soils fixation it's causing issues for our farmers. So production levels are reduced. So they will give you all that assistance that you need. So moving forward, tell us again what it is that you're doing with all the samples you get, and then how soon you're hoping to end in that program.
So as we collect the samples, we're going to analyze the samples for a range of properties that are going to be beneficial to many different stakeholders, including our farmers. Mm-hmm. Once we have collected those, analyzed those soils, collected the information, we are going to develop different maps for the country. So the maps of the properties. So for instance, let's say pH, which is one of the things that our farmers are very well aware of, noting our history, in our bananas. So what we're going to see is a map of St. Lucia that shows the variability of pH across the island.
Okay.
So farmers can see where the pH has changed and how it varies from one location to the next.
Okay.
Yeah. So they will be able to understand better what is happening at their site and what they will likely have to do if they need to address it. Mm-hmm. And that will also give, for instance, our public stakeholders the opportunity to say, okay, there is a need for us to have some intervention for the farmers in this particular area because of what we are seeing here. And that is where we want to go with it. I think very importantly as well is that we also want to guarantee that the access to the information is there. Yeah. And when I say access, not only to the public stakeholders, but to anybody who wishes for that information. Mm-hmm. So the platform is going to have a user interface where if a farmer wishes to go and see what that information about the soils in their area are, they would be able to go and get it on the platform. Mm-hmm. And that is one of the most important things. Sometimes we have information, but it's not necessarily as accessible to all the persons who may need to use it.
From the forest, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm thinking too that, even out of, the agriculture sector, but even in the construction, industry, soils and soil types, are very important, to that industry. And I'm not sure how much of that, would have been a focus, even for the units or the departments who are responsible for that. But I'm certainly sure, that would be very helpful, to that sector, as well.
Yeah, I was asking from the forestry standpoint. I heard you talk about the land degradation. How does the project, take on that or encapsulate that program?
Yeah, well, the project has a first phase. So right now we're into the first phase, soil care phase 1.
Okay.
And we developing a phase 2 at the moment. We're looking to see, how we could pull in again the resources, from the Jeff Star locations to do so. But on the current phase, we've identified areas which we believe have been exposed, to deforestation, loss, of the vegetation that would have, given it, the value, the fertility. And these areas, we believe are in a state where that we could look at them, we could analyze, and we can, especially after these analyses, with the soil analyses are done, that we can see, prescribe certain actions that we could take, to help to bring back, the value, the fertility, of these areas. So some of those areas are dry. You'd barely have any vegetation, going there. Now, we had selected, we had some sites around the Choiseul area. I think Choiseul we had in around the Roseau area. We were looking at that site where the Sir Louis Community College have the agricultural station that's down by Guam Riviere.
Mabuya.
Yes, in the valley there. So we're looking at a site, just adjacent, to that area. And there may be other potential, sites, that we can look at. But we have those general areas as selected, for sites of interventions. So there would be some sampling, of the sites there as well too. Okay. So besides just going to the physical points, we had these free areas where you take in-depth information, of the soil, to be able to help make some decisions as to what we might need to do, to bring back the vitality.
So some of the problems I have sometimes with programs, you have programs starting, there's an end point, and you hear nothing again. So let me know. Tell me where are we heading? I mean, I'm sure that that's the first phase. So I'm hoping to a second phase.
Well,
okay.
I mean, definitely. That's why I mentioned the soil care phase 2.
Yeah.
So the soil care phase 2 is meant to build on that, and the land degradation neutrality program that I mentioned initially, and that is meant to address degradation in itself. So the project is taking that and to bring it to what we call a transformative phase.
Okay.
So while our now minister, when he was
Chief Forest Officer
at the time, yes, he initiated that land degradation neutrality program, and we do have, a report of where our targets will be, for that program. So the soil care phase 2 is looking to transform that into a more practical, state. Also, there are some of the regional countries who are not part of the phase 1. So they now have a chance, and they are coming on board. So they're into the second phase. And some of what we are actually doing in phase 1 now, they'll be doing it in phase 2.
Phase 2.
So the thing is, and you're quite right, a number of projects that we have.
We had them and
and come and then the money finishes.
And that's it.
And that's it. But soil care, we look into get out of that.
If I may, and
Yes,
even in addition to what Mr. Donnelly was saying, I think one of the very well thought of aspects of soil care is the fact that we wanted to make sure that some of what we were doing was institutionalized, so that we won't ever lose. It wouldn't be a project, but it will be maintained as a program. And I think that is one of the roles that the university took on board. So for instance, with the information system that we want to develop, it is going to be housed in the university. So it doesn't make a difference if I am not there.
Correct.
Or whatever.
The information is there.
It will always be there and will always have a home in the institution, because we anticipate it's our original institution. That institution will last. So we will always have that information there as accessible. And one of the other things Soil Care did is to create networks. So we have, for instance, a laboratory network of all the labs, national soil labs across our region, including our national diagnostic facility. And the essence of that is, when you have a network, is that you have persons working towards things that they have an interest in, and they will ensure through their own participation that the work continues. So I think we have some entrenched within the project, some very good activities that are going to allow for some level of longevity and sustainability of our actions.
I'm happy to hear that, because I'm speaking the farmer's language. And I'm sure you've heard some bizarre stories about officers going out to get soil samples, and up to now they have not gotten the results. Okay? We have a diagnostic lab, okay? We're hoping, stemming from your intervention, the UWI's intervention, going out there and taking your soil samples and creating information for the farmer. What's next? In other words, he knows his soil is high, is acidic. He wants to get production. So what is next for the farmer?
So let me see if I can answer that question in a very shrewd way, I guess. One of the things we require as well with it is to have the capacity for us to support our stakeholders, particularly our farmers.
Great.
That means we also need to ensure that our technical persons have the capacity to be able to interpret and provide the necessary information that will support the farmer.
Good.
So in addition to what Soil Care already has and what we have said, Soil Care has a very strong knowledge management, capacity building component. Within Soil Care, there are 5 academic scholarships available to the participants, and we are just about to advertise for 2.
Okay.
Yeah, and the essence of it is to continuously build capacity within countries, within the region. In addition to that, we have several trainings that we are organizing, actually upcoming. There is one on the digital soil mapping.
Right.
So that is upcoming in April, and there will be several others. Once we have the information, we will also train persons to be able to interpret the information, so that when they're interacting with our farmers, they have an understanding of, this is what we need to indicate to them based on the results that we are seeing. But that doesn't mean as well, and I'm a strong proponent of that, if we can organize to have farmers themselves participate and get the knowledge hands-on.
So there'll be a training component to that?
As well for that, yes.
Okay, good.
I think also it will be very important or essential that from a ministerial point of view, that there could be some, if it needs to be, a policy change or adaptation, to be able to work with, the farmers, because I know you create that expectancy, and people would want to see, some change, in the snap of a finger.
Yes.
And sometimes you need to have, a thought out, plan, of how you could bring that, change about. And I think it would be very important, for us to be able to use that information and show the farmers, that or take the lead in bringing about, that change that we expecting to get.
I'm sure once the information is well passed on to them,
Yes.
and which I'm sure they yearning to get, so that they can see the results in production, they would definitely be satisfied. I was about to any final words from you.
I think I want to follow up on Alwyn's comment there. One of the things also that is very critical for us, and some work will be done with soil care on that, is the fact that within our region, none of our countries have a policy, an instrument that speaks specifically to how we want to manage soil as a resource. And when we say soil, I like to differentiate soil from land.
Yes,
Land we
yes,
own.
yes,
But we should not be owning soil. And we have to understand that resource is all of ours, and we must think about how we manage it. And I think in doing so, we'll be able to address some of those concerns. So I think that is an area that we really have to pay attention to. Thank you.
Alwyn, I want to thank you for being here, and I wish you all success in that project. And it's long overdue, and I'm hoping that the farmers definitely will see some success and some result, because all we want to do is to get our food and security secured.
That is correct.
What it is,
Yes.
definitely. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you so very much.
You have been watching Agriculture on the Move. I remember again, agriculture is our business, and eat fresh, St. Lucia's best. I'm Philip Sidney saying goodbye, and see you again. Thank you.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.